Welcome back, everybody, to a glorious Snetterton, Norfolk's finest race circuit for the British Racing and Sports Car Club. Here in the holding area is the Love Cars Caterham Academy. It's the white group this time. We saw the greens come out earlier. It is the turn of the white group. On pole is number 17, Harry George. Let's have a quick chat with him. Harry, confident ahead of today's race?
Fairly, yes. Yeah, I mean, qualifying, good result on pole, so I've just got to get a good start, race my own race, and then hopefully, yeah, we'll see, but I'm hoping for a good result, so yeah, confident.
Now it looks hot and dry and ideal racing conditions from here. Does it feel like that when you're out there?
The car felt good this morning. The track, it's all very good. So not too hot as well. The sun's not fully out, so the surface will be all right. But yeah, the car will handle well. So we're looking forward to it.
And how much pressure do you feel as a driver when you've got the entire pack behind you, or do you not concentrate on that and just hit your apexes?
No, I think once the lights go out, the pressure just goes like a switch. You just got to get your head down, race your own race, and you just got to do the best you can do. So yeah, I don't think you have to worry about everyone else behind you. But
good stuff. Best of luck, Harry. We'll see you on the other side. Hopefully we've got a few more moments to have a chat with number 21, which is Charlie Lower. I'm sure there isn't an anecdote that I can think of that he hasn't heard before, that he hasn't heard. Charlie, front row, how's your qualifying? You happy with that?
Yeah, super happy with that. The competition's very tight between all of us. There's a lot of extremely talented drivers on the grid, so I'm happy to be where I am.
Excellent, excellent. Now we've of course heard from the pole sitter on what he feels about the track conditions. What was it like out there? Do you sort of feel it rubber in and the grip change as some of the faster categories do?
Yeah, definitely. You could tell from the morning it's definitely got more, it's got grippier and grippier. We found that even in testing, that the first morning runs were quite slippery, but it got grippier and grippier through the day. And it's sunny and the track's warm, so it should be a good race.
Excellent. Best of luck out there. We'll see you on the other side. We've got a few minutes to go, so we'll have another chat with the very minty green coloured number 11, which is William James. Oh, bright pink accents on the top of the car. So, how are you happy with the qualifying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had quite a difficult qualifying and made quite a bit. It was quite messy, so yeah, happy with third for sure.
So how much, when you're starting on the second row, are you gunning for these two, or are you constantly keeping an eye behind you?
I think, yeah, it's all about trying to get a good start, so for sure just kind of focusing. It is what it is, it depends on how it all unfolds, I guess, but yeah, you want to be focusing on what's ahead.
Good man. Best of luck. Certainly see your car coming. Best of luck, William, and we'll see you on the other side. Now, I want to have a chat with this man, the Apex Predator, as the car is labelled number 43, which is Gareth Lucas. Gareth,
hey.
So starting on the second row, you happy with that?
Yeah, pretty good. I had a setup change on my car as well yesterday, so it was all a bit new in qualifying, and so happy with fourth, definitely. So we'll see what we can do.
Now, with these Caterham Academy cars, they're of course sort of more of an entry level as far as Caterham racing is concerned, well, by and large. How much room is there for setting the cars up?
I think, to be honest, the biggest change is really how you flat floor the car and the suspension geometry and the rake. So that really does make a difference. So you can have a little bit of a play. There isn't a huge amount you can do, but it does impact the handling of the car, and it's down to your preference. So yeah.
Excellent. Best of luck out there, Gareth. The gate is now open. The cars are now heading to the field. I'll throw it back to Scott in the commentary box for race number 5 of the Love Cars Caterham Academy.
The next race of Caterham Motorsports weekend here, and it's now time for the second group, as you mentioned, of the Caterham Academy. Of course, it's now the white group's turn to take to the track for their first of 2 championship scoring races for their final round of 2021. So we had some close connotations in the first race for the green group. The white group, Chris, is looking even more closer and trickier than that. He's working out some of Simon's connotations. From what we can work out in this first race, essentially, this is all really this is getting very close between Charlie Lower and Harry George, who, quite fittingly, are both on the front row of the grid, again, in terms of championship contenders. So these two really have been going at it hammer and tongs all season, but it's really going to come down mostly to who can finish ahead of the other, and also who does or doesn't pinch the fastest lap, because literally they're that close on drop scores, just 2 points between them. William James a further point back, but of course it could all come down to count back in terms of results, and particularly if wins and second places come to mix, it literally could be either person's game depending on how the other finishes and what they've got to fall back on.
Yep, there's only so much you can control, isn't there? So I am sure they are both going to be looking to win the race, and then they can't do any more than that. Certainly win it with the fastest lap. But it's really good to see that the fast guys are being at the top there. So we're really treated to seeing the battle happening just at the front of the grid, which is really nice to see. And again, there's been some really good battling through this whole season for this for the group, and it's always nice to see the 2 full grids of Caterham Academy cars, because we can't fit them all on one grid basically.
Yeah, Caterham Academy, the basis of it is that you get a fresh group of drivers coming through, all of which have never held a racing licence before at all in their lifetime. So that's the stipulation. You can't have ever raced anything in your life, any kind of competition licence. Everyone who goes into the Caterham Academy are all bona fide novice drivers, all off the streets, and all get turned to bona fide racing drivers. We'll continue that point in a second because we have the grid on the screen. So the main championship contenders are quite fittingly all on the front together. So it's Harry George and Charlie Lower on the front row of the grid. William James and Gareth Lucas then come next on row 2. Giles Perry and Mark Janezeski are then on the third row of the grid, ahead of Neil Perry and Tom Noakes on the fourth row. And then it's followed by Benja Headley, and then 10th place man James Moon, who rounds out the top 10 starters for the white group of the Caterham Academy. Then moving forwards to row 6, we see Mike Banton and Richard J. Ainscough, or Rocco as he's known, so Rocco Ainscough, who's the relative of former 420 racer, as high as that, Richard Ainscough, runs in the family. Simon Patel and Louise Deason then come next on the 7th row, 13th and 14th place. Julian Roebuck starts 15th alongside Augustin Sayrak. And then we've got the rest of the field coming through on the grid. It's row 9 for Richard Lawrence and Ray Radford. And rounding out the top 20, we've got Chris Roberts and Graham Walker. And followed then we've got Lyndon Arnold, Alan Bateman and David Saxby to create a 23 car grid for the white group of the Love Cars Caterham Academy Championship. And just continue the point we made on the Caterham Academy drivers. So any novice drivers that come through the Caterham Academy, they need to get split up into 2 groups, a green group and a white group, because as Chris rightly said, there's usually so many drivers on the Caterham Academy group that there's not enough, there's not space to put them all onto one grid. So they split them off into green and to white group, they race respectively in their own championships, and then they come together. Usually all the drivers in both groups will graduate together, usually all move up together into the Road Sport Championship. But then, through the process of making themselves into racing drivers, they then either buy a kit that they can build the car themselves, or they can have a car pre-built, which costs a couple of grand more in the package, and they can then have that built and looked after by Caterham themselves. What they then do is they then have a collective do the ARDS test, which is their racing driver test to get their racing license, their inter-club racing license to go racing. They then do a track and test day, a handling day, a drift day, all to kind of learn the basics of the car, how to use the basic setup parameters, how to get a feel for it on the circuit, how to drive it, how to handle it in certain corners, and then to start them off in gently in competitive competition. I say gently, rather lightly I suppose, is that they get them to put them on a competitive sprint, which is simply just against the clock, one car each on the course, and then once they complete the sprint, which they get points for towards the championship, they then go on to the race circuits. And they've been to so far some quite decent circuits, including, of all places, the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, which has been quite an experience, Chris. In your first season of racing, you're on the same circuit that just probably weeks before, weeks after, the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, George Russell and co. have all been battling on in the pinnacle of motorsport, and they're getting to live out, potentially for them, a dream, which is racing exactly the same circuit that they did just a few weeks, give or take, before or after.
It took me 8 years to get to drive and race on the Grand Prix circuit, so yeah, they got to do it in their first race. What an excellent thing. And you've gone through what they kind of go through as part of the academy, but the most important bit is they all go through it together, and that's why we build these bonds in these early years, and it's really nice to see. And they will be racing each other now for the next, maybe their 8 years will still them racing. You mentioned Rocco Ainscough. I raced against Richard Ainscough, and he was in from my track sport year onwards, as it was then. It's 270 now. That shows how old I am, doesn't it? Getting on a bit now, Scott.
It's not age, it's just experience, Chris. You should know that. But even so, yes, it's the great thing you do tend to see when you look at the previous academy groups. You will see essentially class of insert year. those kind of groups of drivers, they tend to form like a collective group of drivers, and they do generally move up and race against each other collectively as a group up the stages together, because they not only form friendships, but they just enjoy racing against each other, and they can trust each other, which is the great thing, which provides really good close racing consistently across the Caterham spectrum. So, green flag will be at the back of the grid any second now. The 5-second ball will go up, and our second of 4 Caterham Academy races for the weekend. The first for the white group is set to get underway. 5-second ball is up on the gantry. Let's get another championship battle conclusion underway. It's going to be Harry George versus Charlie Lowe on the front row of the grid. Great launch from Charlie Lowe from the front row. Brilliant launch from the outside of the front of the grid to get himself into the lead. Fantastic jump to get to completely hoodwinked Harry George, and also charging past. Looks to William James. Up the inside also looks to the 43 of Gareth Lucas, into the right hand, which is they go. Running wide is 97, James Moon. He's going to the moon, off onto the grass. A couple more cars running wide. It was a little bit loose, cold tyres, just trying to find their way through the grip levels at Richie's corner after qualifying this morning. But it is Charlie Lowe who leads all over the place, and oversteering wide was William James, but he just about holds on. But the one that really lost that was Harry George from pole position. That inside the front row for the first couple of races we've had today, not essentially not necessarily the place to be, being on pole position. The outside of the front row seems to be cleaner and give you much better starts and much better grip.
It's just a bit unlucky, that grid spot, and he certainly looked like he was going to get really swallowed up by the field, but he recovered it back, and now he's coming back down the inside there back into second place, so exactly where he needs to be. So he'll put that behind him. He's got to get his head on, and he's got to get going to chase down the lead.
You think it's something like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, wouldn't you? But it's actually 2:45, so quite a hazy October, sort of autumnal Norfolk afternoon here at Snetterton. It's wonderful weather conditions though. Great to see them racing in the dry, particularly in this part of this time of the year, because I think you remember last year's memories of racing here at Snetterton. Wasn't quite dry, it was quite much wetter, and that was just before we went into the basically, well, forcible hibernation, shall we say, for
whatever
the
the opposite of dry is was what Snetterton was last year. I
remember there's a picture in the yearbook for the Caterham for the BOCC, and there's a great picture that we captioned it, Caterham's in the mist rather than the Gorillas in the mist, because there was so much spray water. I think it was the 310R race. And there was so much standing water, you could barely make out the Caterham's bar there. Well, they didn't have headlights for 310R, so it was that difficult. And I even had to take my hat off to those who raced that day. It was absolutely incredible. Anyway, that was then. This is now 12 months later, and the leaders are making their way up towards the bomb hole for the first time. That's Gareth Lucas, as he names himself the Apex Predator, as he comes up through the right-hander. Trying to live up to that name by trying taking some clean apexes all the way through. Now, Harry George has really moved his way back into second place, so he's not taking too long after that bad start, and now he's immediately putting Harry George under pressure. So let's just remind ourselves of the connotations from Simon Lambert, Chief Medical Officer at Caterham. So again, he reminds us a win for Charlie Lowe would mean on Saturday needs Harry leaving second and fastest lap to keep his title fight alive. But if the two are fighting for the lead, which they are now already, in both races, Charlie needs to win at least one of them. He can't afford to follow Harry home. Well, that's essentially what Charlie is doing, exactly what he needs to, which is staying ahead of Harry here. He needs to make sure we can hold on to him, but he's got to do that now, Chris, for the next 17.5 minutes. As we both know with Caterham racing, that ain't easy.
Especially around Snetterton, yeah, you've got these two long straights, and the academies haven't got the engine power, and they've slightly down on that power to be able to punch their way through the air. So we're absolutely going to see that. So there's no point trying to protect your lead for the entire race. There are times when you must sort of sit back and look at the bigger pictures. We can see George is actually going down the inside, so he does want to be ahead coming down into the Agostini hairpin, and he's managed to make that move stick.
Nice clean pass up the inside, under brakes. There was no squeeze into the inside liner, trying to edge him out onto the road, into the grass. It was simply a case of, look, you've got the move, I'll try and get you back. And arguably, there is plenty of time left in the race. We've still got 3/4 of it left to go. So, again, maybe the two of them, even though they're in a championship battle, do they call a temporary truce and pull away? It'd be quite unthinkable, given the fact they're the two main rivals. But then again, you've also got to think about the fact that William James, who's only a point behind Harry George on drop scores, and 3 points in total behind Charlie Lowe, the championship leader, they're going to think about essentially, do they want to try and make it just a one-on-one battle, or do they want to make it a three-way fight between them? That's been the key thing. But I think at this point in time, as you probably experienced, when you've got your championship rival in front of you, you don't necessarily want to work together with him. You want to beat him at this point.
You absolutely do want to beat them. You'll get different drivers with different personalities. You see another move up the inside here, not actually going to come off that time. But you have the different personalities of the drivers. Some are thinkers, some are living, like corner by corner, and so especially in the academy years, they're developing what they are as a driver, and I think we'll see that later on today, whether they've got 15 minutes of this race still to go, so nothing they do now is actually going to be it's going to determine the outcome.
Yeah, there's lock up there from, just to mention, I think it was Julian Roebuck. He started back in 15th place, but he's up to 12th. So I also saw there a shot of, I think it was possibly, if I look at Richard Lawrence, I think, in R64 there, who had the mint-coloured Caterham. Down the pit straight we go. Possible change on for second because Charlie Lowe has pulled the gap out now. William James is the man on the move. We talked about not to count him out, and he's certainly putting himself into the mix. Latched onto the rear end of Harry George's car as they turn in through Riches again on the third lap of racing. As we say, the fastest lap of the race is the first proper flying lap, because usually the first lap doesn't really count because you're starting from a grid. You get the true representation of what pace is like once they complete the second lap. As again, Charlie Lowe just leaves the door open a little bit close. That's a bit of it's intentional or not. It's a bit of a teaser. Harry George thinking, right, are you leaving the door open? Are you not? And that uncertainty can breed into losing time, not just to the car in front, because you're thinking, well, do I make a move? Don't I? And indecision can also mean that the cars behind can pounce on that and think, right, he's sort of dwindling around wondering what to do, and he could try and pinch a move down the inside somewhere and make the move stick if he can. He's trying to get into the hairpin. Agostini is lower again, just left his inside line a little bit too loose, and that was close between the two of them, almost touching between wheels, but good racecraft they're learning here between the two. And again, it's close between the front as we like it to be, but it's getting a bit sort of, if you're going to make moves, you either got to try and calculate it and make it stick, and not make tentative moves like that and thinking where you could either, if it's a 50-50 chance where it works or not, you've got to try the caution to the wind or sit there and calculate it like you mentioned. There are different driving styles at play here.
Yeah, definitely. Charlie Lowe leaving the inside open into Agostini. He has done on the last 2 laps. Didn't actually let the pass complete that time, but as we've said before, that just allows cars behind to catch up, and we've seen actually William James, he's actually looking the most threatening at the moment, isn't he? He's looking like he's going to make a move down into this complex coming under the bridge here. It's quite a daunting place to be for a driver here, but it's great fun when it all comes together. But the order remains the same. Now, Harry George has now made it into the lead, so he has made that move stick. And will we see Charlie Lowe now have to protect himself from William behind?
And I'd say keep an eye on Gareth Lucas too. He's in 4th place, 1.7 seconds back, and not that far away from the cars behind. We've got cars in front of him in the top 3. Good to see further back. We've got quite a nice little battle pack forming here towards the tail of the field, and look and see who that's involving. That's being led by 77, which is Lyndon Arnold, and that is a scrap that's going on for 60 down the back, pretty much the back of the field. So this is the beauty about Caterham Academy, is that literally, regardless of what your speed level is, there is always some down the race. So these guys, for whatever reason, don't care where they are on the way. They just enjoy themselves on track and having fun and enjoying the experience. This is their last weekend as academy drivers, so they're just out there. While they're not in the championship fight, there might be little personal championship battles within the table, trying to get the 22nd spot or break into the top 20, or trying to finish ahead of a particular driver if there's a friendly rivalry going on. These guys and girls all love it because they love the experience of racing with the friends they've made, just enjoying it being out on track racing together. And that is friendships. Not only means that they that they move up together in the races, but also it just breeds friendships in general, and they remember it, and you always know that they can trust them when they're racing against them on track, regardless of what level locations they find themselves in.
Yeah, if you ever come to one of our races live, and we encourage everyone to do that, it's really great to watch the Caterhams as they're going around in live. It's great to go and see them in Parc Ferme because everyone's chatting and there's all that liveliness going on because everyone's had an epic battles. They're not necessarily out front, it doesn't matter. They're all having fun and their families are all involved as well. So definitely make sure you make your way over to Parc Ferme to see some of that happening. It's quite entertaining.
You should be around when the social evenings happen. It gets just as frantic. Anyway, leaders have gone through. It was quite close, that you can see 15,000 of a second between Harry George and Charlie Lowe. This battle's still going on between Lyndon Arnold. He's battling away with the 51 of Ray Radford up the inside. He goes up the inside. This is for, again, remember, as it only, it's for 16th place downwards. But again, these guys literally would say, who cares? It's just a great battle between 6-7 cars at the back of the field, and they're having a mega scrap. They're thinking, lead battle? Forget about that. There's all sorts going on here. Louise Deaston up the inside. She gets past, looks like Lyndon. So both Ray Radford and Louise Deaston have got past Lyndon Arnold. Looks like Roberts is in there too as well. Back with our leaders. I was quite enjoying that. Back with our leaders, we've got Charlie Lowe ahead of Harry George with William James in there as well. And then they've just pulled away a couple of seconds now from Gareth Lucas. The top 3 all together as they turn their way back through Caterham. This is on lap 4. Still got 11 minutes to go in this race on the clock. So the timing is frozen a little bit there. It just clicked back into life now. We've just had 11 minutes to go. So fastest lap of the race. It sits with Harry George at the moment. So we'll work out in terms of connotations what that means in a moment's time. A couple of cars running a little wide there. 88 is Augustin Seyrac. he's now under threat from Lindenau. So this is interesting. So now Lindenau's lost another place now. So what good pace that he had a couple of laps ago within that pack, he's now losing it in these next couple of laps, and it can be just momentum. Literally, you build up a rhythm, one small slip, and it takes about another lap or two to get that momentum back. And it's not always easy, but in particular, it's definitely not easy. It's not always easy, that easy to do, particularly when your car's as tricky on the limit as it is as one of these Caterhams.
Now, we mentioned earlier how I'm watching these racing at Knock Hill, and again just seeing this rear of the end battle, but actually the battle lasts longer nowadays because they're all under control, and it makes it harder to overtake. It's only going to get harder as they go up through the steps, but it's really good to see these battles deep in the field.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see plenty more of them, I guess, regardless of where they find themselves in the pack all the way through. There is Alan Bateman. And Alan is currently at the moment in 22nd place, but again, he won't care about that. He just cares about the fact, the experience, and the fact that he's involved in the fight as well. Speaking of fights, here's this 4-car battle now, because Gareth Lucas has recaught the top 3. Now it is a leading quartet back into Oggies now for the 5th time. Lap 5 of this first of 2 point scoring races to decide the Love Cars Caterham Academy white group. Green group have had their first races today, and they'll be back tomorrow, as will these guys. There's the gap, top 4, then we wait, then 5th and 6th come through, and it's now been a change around. So Mark Janaszewski's got past Giles Perry, but they're going to go wheel to wheel here. Perry darts out, pulls himself alongside Janaszewski, and they go side by side. Perry's got the better momentum, and through he will go. Meanwhile, Charlie Lower is back in front then, so Lower maintains the place ahead of George. It's William James in 3rd and Gareth Lucas in 4th. We've got now Giles Perry up to 5th, Janaszewski 6th, so he's retaken that position now after he was passed earlier in the lap. 7th place there is Neil Perry. I'm not sure if there's a relation between the two, but they're simply just surname, a coincidence to have the same surname. Michael Banton 9th, then you've then got Simon Patel in 9th place. Michael Banton 8th, Simon Patel 9th, and Benja Headley, who came to the weekend 5th on drop scores in points, back down in 10th place and not having the greatest run so far for him in this first race. Here come the leaders, side by side for 2nd and 3rd. This is not really what Harry George needs. He needs to keep Charlie Lowe in his grasp here. He's trying to go on the attack here to defend. This is all he can do at this point in time. He's basically choosing to attack Charlie Lowe as best he can to defend from William James, because in that situation, it's all you can do to put pressure on the car in front to get them to hurry up and try and do something to prevent any kind of attack from the guy behind and to put him off if you're already trying to get past the car in front and they're going to make a move. So he's really in a bit of a catch-22 situation here. He's got to keep literally one eye on Charlie Lower in front of him and one eye on his mirror looking behind him, William James, and that is the hardest thing to do, particularly if you're in a tight championship battle and these three are separated by 3 points on drop scores. I would not want to be Harry in this situation. The guy in the middle of these 3 is not the place I would want to be in this battle so far.
Again, we see Harry there squeezing down the inside, just a hint of a gap, and he's made it stick down into Agostini. But you're right, it is the hardest thing to do, is to manage when you're in the middle of a sandwich. It's not the most comfortable place to be, and you've got to manage it all. We've seen Charlie Lowe a couple of times, though, break that little gap, and actually it's been Harry George that has had the pressure from behind. We've seen it reversed, though, immediately, so these long straights doing their job and actually stirring things up. But with Lucas coming to join the battle as well, sometimes 4 cars in a battle actually causes a bit of interference, because it suddenly makes the person in a third a little bit more nervous, and we've seen Lucas getting back involved in those battles a bit more heavily, but still it's these front 2 that just managed to make that little bit extra each time, and they've sort of the majority of the laps they've led.
Just going back to Simon's connotations, he did say that Charlie will need to win at least one of these races. He can't afford to follow Harry home, so he's got himself back in front now. So Charlie, and what this needs now is that Harry needs 2nd of the fastest lap in order to keep the time place alive. At the moment, he has the fastest lap of the race, and he is currently now 2nd behind Charlie, so it does keep his title hopes alive. In some cases, essentially, it really matters to what these 2 do, what order they finish in, and also who does or doesn't have that fastest lap. That's going to be really crucial. But at the moment, even though Charlie is leading the race, Harry's 2nd and has that fastest lap to keep it that close, going through the connotations of the count back on championship scores on drop points. It's quite a complicated thing to do at the end of the season, particularly when you have to start factoring in drop scores, but it really does make it very tight towards the end. It makes it almost confusing, and I've owned that scenario several championships myself as well, so I know exactly what it feels like for Simon Lambert and co to have to work this out, because it's definitely, I know from experience, sometimes it really isn't easy to work it out at all.
No, absolutely not. And we've had several times where we've had the pregnant pause in Parc Fermé waiting to hear the results, and it can get very complicated, like you say, on countback with these drop scores. But really, like we always say, if you win the race and get fastest lap, there's nothing more you can do.
So looking further back here, this is the battle now for 5th place backwards now. This is behind the top 4. So this is now Mark Janicki, who's been battling race long so far with, or for most of it, with Giles Perry. That's now brought Neil Perry, Michael Banton and Banton into the mix. Simon Patel is then a further 3 seconds back, and he himself is scrapping the Benja Headley, so watch out for them battling over 9th and 10th. So the 5-minute board has gone out, so for most of the drivers, so they'll be saying there's roughly about 5 minutes to go in this race, and there is 5 minutes to go. It ticks down to 5 minutes exactly now. So this battle continues to go on. And again, look at the dimming light. It really doesn't look like, I feel like it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It feels like it's later in the afternoon, like a summer sunny afternoon at about sort of roughly 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. It's not 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday.
We've been treated to some great weather today here at Snetterton. It's been nice and warm earlier today, but like you say, we're later in the year, therefore the sun starts disappearing on us. But yeah, we've seen plenty of this, and the cool air actually makes the Caterhams go really nice and fast as we come back to that lead group. Can you see now that Lower has actually gained that little gap? Remember last time I said we've seen it a couple of times. He's got that gap over Harry George. Harry George now is going to have to work hard to try and close that gap down. With 4 minutes to go, he needs to be careful of that.
Yeah, he really is coming under massive pressure from William James, particularly when you look again that Harry George is only on drop scores a point ahead of William James. He really needs to know he literally cannot afford to lose this place now. Even though he has fastest lap, he needs to stay in second place or re-catch and re-pass Charlie Lower to keep his title hopes alive. Otherwise, this is all playing to the hands of Charlie Lower. Again, where he is right now will keep him in contention for tomorrow, according to the connotations that we've had through. So he needs to stay in second place, and he can't lose the fastest lap of the race. He has it at the moment, 2 minutes 17.694. Last lap for Charlie Lower was a 2:17.9, but the fast lap is a 2:17.6. So he's putting some quite quick lap times with possibly some that time there. I think someone's recovering from a spinner. That's Louise Deason's had a bit of a rotation. I think she just saw her there recovering. I think possibly after a spin at Oggies. She's carried on. She crossed the line last time in 21st place in her last complete lap, so she's got some work to do. Possibly drop behind 22nd or even 23rd, I think. There is 74. That's Julian Roebuck, or as the number plate. The number stipulates Grandpa. I'm not going to comment on his age at all because I don't know it, but he was saying, a big lock up for Charlie Lowe. This could be crucial. Up the inside goes Harry George, up into the lead. Also into second place has gone William James, and to third has gone Gareth Lucas. So it's all changed. Now, I need to look at the car behind. That's not Janicki, that's a back marker. So all change off camera there, but in the blink of an eye, we thought it was quite a lead of about 0.6 of a second, but in literally a matter of corners, this whole race now and the commentators for the championship have completely turned on their head.
Yeah, brilliant. There was one little lock-up is all it takes. He drifted wide into Agostini there. We've seen him a couple of times not make the most of his braking zone there. Harry George has had the better of him, and maybe he thought he could brake a little bit later, or maybe the back marker came into effect there. Either way, we have now got the situation where, like you say, Harry George is now out front with Williams there in second, and he has a work to do to try and bring back that gap. 4 points is going to be crucial in this final battle.
Really is, and so particularly with the fastest lap point, of course, means that Harry George will get the win, and of course remember it's 25 points for 25 points for win, 23 for second, 22 for third, 21 for fourth. And if it's the fastest lap point on top of that as well, that's 5 points that Harry George at the moment is taking out of Charlie Lower, which means that looking at the battle at the moment, he not only, as far as I can tell, I think, not only does he take back the 2 points which he was down by, but he also then surpasses Charlie by another 3, which means he takes the championship, I think. Over I'm trying to work it out in my head whilst it was going along. It's got a minute and a half to go or so to come across and start the last lap of the race. Now, William James just stole the fast lap of the race at 2:16.9, so it's gone back again, and he's going for a lead, rounding out to the Harry George. Back into third place has gone Charlie Lower. I don't think he used to even factor this in. William James is in there. Gareth Lucas, who, bear in mind, is in 7th in the points. He's in there just for the fun of it. William James goes down the outside. He's back up the inside of Harry George. Side by side, they're both back into the league group. And now they're side by side for the lead. The two championship contenders literally now are wheel to wheel again, but neither of them have the fast snap of the race. So, at this point in time, I think, if Harry can't get the fast snap back again, it might, and I say this with the biggest provision in the world, might put Charlie into potential possible championship winning mode, but we can't confirm that at all. We have to wait for this final race to go. Essentially, what Harry's to do, he's got to get past Charlie to give him any chance of staying on, to hold on to this potential chance for the title.
Interesting, Harry didn't go for that move up the inside of Agostini like we've done before. He's sitting behind him, going out onto the Bentley straight. Is he going to be brave and sit behind him and wait for that final corner, or is he going to make a move down this long final straight? As we go through Oggies, there's only a few corners left. We're on definitely our last up. We've got a rotation, number 20 there down at Agostini.
That's Mark Januszewski, who was in battling for 5th with Giles Perry, but he's dropped down. And look at the way Harry George threw that car into the corner, and also there, William James was so sideways on the exit there through Williams' corner, trying to stay onto the tail of Gareth Lucas. Now, I'm not sure how close, if he was close enough to hold on, not quite in return to get close enough there. He might get a possible chance to I think he'll be close enough to stay close to Brundle Nelson. But maybe the run down the pit straight could be a typical case for a photo finish between these two. He's close enough to make that happen. Out of the right-hander at Nelson, up towards the bomb hole, nose to tail. Arguably, essentially, Harry has to make this move, otherwise we possibly think there is a small provisional chance. It could be Charlie's title. He's having a look up the inside of the Corum. He knows he has to be right under his roll cage to stay there. Up through Corum for the final time. Into Murray's. These two are going to be nose to tail. Is Charlie going to make a second a little bit too hot into the corner? Yes, he sort of has. He has. He's gone over the curve, and it might be the chance that Harry needs. He wants to shift up the inside line. He's going to get through on the outside line. He's done it. He's got through. Harry George gets there, but it's not over yet. Charlie gets back into the slipstream. Side by side towards the line, and Harry George, to keep his title hopes alive, has done it. He's just taken Charlie lower on the final corner, and he beats him by 1.5 tenths of a second. Harry George, I can't stress that enough. He needed to do that, and he's so. It looked as though initially going to the final corner, Charlie was going to take a little bit too much speed. He did. They were so focused on the cars behind. There's more shenanigans going on behind with cars going every which way. That is Noakes, Moon's in there as well. Looks like Ainscoe and possibly Patel in there as well. With some battles going on. But that final battle towards the end, as they come up towards the checkered flag, I think what did it for Harry, there was two things that Charlie Lower did. One, he went a little bit too deep, a little bit too wide into the final corner at Murray's, and then two, it looked like he just snatched the wrong gear, or just didn't hit the shift as quick enough as he wanted to, and that just gave Harry the momentum to get in front, and then even though he got back into the slipstream, it wasn't enough for Charlie to get back past and beat him at the line. I think Harry George will be the most relieved person in the paddock tonight, I think at least, for picking up that win, because he knew, essentially, from in his head, unless he was told or not, essentially, that needed to happen, and he got it done, but only just.
Yeah, we saw Lower. I was going to congratulate him on taking so much speed into the final corner there, but it just turned out to be a tickle too much, and he had a sideways moment on the exit, which meant that Lower didn't get on the power quite as soon as George, and it ended up being quite an easy move. Like you say, there was a bit of a slipstream, but I think he had lost it at that stage. But what a great finale to this race.
What a great finale we're going to get tomorrow for the championship, particularly with how close it could be. Last few cars coming across the line to finish off. That great battle towards the back as the last few stragglers from that scrap come across the line. The likes of Walker, Louise Deason after her spin, and also David Saxby in car number 6. Excellent stuff from the Caterham Academy. And again, we stress this is only their first season of racing, but some of the race cars, some of the battles that you see, you'd never think it. It's fantastic stuff between these guys.
Yeah, the difference between the beginning and the end of the season is awesome, and it just leads to a really nice build-up for road sport. And even we've got the Autumn Trophy race coming up tomorrow. Obviously, you definitely tune in for that, because this is the first time that you all get to race together, and that's always an exciting moment as well.
First time they get to race together in terms of being on one grid in one technically one competition together, because they did race together on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, but that was within their classes on track together, so we'll watch out for that. So, after an exhausting finish to the white group for the Love Cars Caterham Academy, Harry George crucially gets it when he absolutely needed to keep his title hopes alive. He just beats Charlie Lower by 1.5 for Gareth Lucas 3rd, William James 4th, then the Perrys, Giles and Neil, followed by Michael Banton, Benja Headley, Mark Jazeski and Simon Patel, then Tom Noakes, James Moon, Rocco Ainscoe, Julian Robot, Augustin Sayrak, Richard Lawrence, Lyndon Arnold, Chris Roberts, Alan Bateman and Ray Radford round out the top 20, and then Graham Walker, Louise Deason and David Saxby. Once again, all 23 started, all 23 made it home, which is great to see. Fast snap of the race also goes to William James.